Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention? The webinar is about to begin. Honorable Mrs. Noriza binti Abdul Kadir, our lecturer for English Proficiency 4, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, Assalamualaikum and a very good afternoon. First of all, I would like to welcome you all to this webinar. On this occasion, we would like to discuss about rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia from Group 5. Before we start our session, let me introduce myself first. My name is Situna Aisyah binti Karudin, and I will be serving as your moderator for today. But I am not alone, and this webinar is not complete without our panels. Here we have our Minister of Finance, the very Honorable Puan Sri Nurliana binti Muhammad Kamal, as our first panel. Next, Mrs. Nur Farah Wahida binti Muhammad Razi as a vegetable seller. We move to the next panel, which is Raudah binti Muhammad Khairi, who is represent the student, and the last one is Mr. Muhammad Faiz bin Muhammad Ramli as a teacher. I am honored to have all the panels willing to join our discussion today. Our session will be one round presentation. That means panelists will present one time only, and for panelists, you have 4 minutes to present. If you guys have any question later, you can type on chat box. Okay, as I mentioned before, the rising price of essential goods in Malaysia will be our topic for today. Nowadays, this issue is hotly debated, especially the price of raw materials such as chicken, which reached 11 ringgit per kilogram. Price of other material also increased up to 50%. Is reported in the Berita Harian. Due to this issue, what are the factors that contribute to the increase of the price essential goods in Malaysia? Without further ado, I would like to welcome the very Honorable Puan Sri Nurliana to answer this question. Alright, the floor is yours.
Thank you to our moderator. Assalamualaikum and good evening to Madam Noriza binti Abdul Kadir, our moderator, respective panels, and our audience. Thank you for inviting me to this webinar. Based on the question given, let me introduce a term that we often use in the discussing about rising price of the goods essential, which is inflation. Inflation is defined as a decrease of the purchasing power of money, reflected generally increase the price of the goods and services in economy. It has worse impacts on consumer. High price of day-to-day goods make it difficult to consumer to survive in their daily life because of the high price, and they uh, cannot afford to buy the basic commodities in their life. This leaves them with no choice but to ask for higher incomes. Let's talk about the factors of the inflation. First factor of inflation is demand pull inflation, which defined as the upward pressure on prices that follow, respectively, a shortage of supply. Simple explanation of this term that used by the economists to describe this term is too much dollar for too few products. Therefore, this demandful inflation usually occurs when our people or our country like to predict the inflation. Usually, we can see in the news where the latest news from televisions or social media, it says that India needs to ban the export of the flour in their country to outside the other country because the limitation of the supply and stock. And therefore, here is to the news, our people like to buy a lot of flour and spend a lot of money because of that. Due to the high demand, therefore, there was a limited number of the floor and demand the floor was far greater than capacity. The price of the floor is increasing. Next is about cost push inflation. First factor of the second inflation of the inflation is cost push inflation. Today, we are living in endemic phase, which all people freely to go to work and lively to do all the socializing they do before the COVID-19 comes to our life. But we still live with the virus COVID-19, right? And with some of the workers or people who are works affected with the affected with the virus COVID-19, the whole company or the factory need to be closed. Therefore, the employer or the boss of the factory need to make sure all the workers and all the employees have the health health secure healthcare of they need to pay all the things about those swab tests, the vaccination, and also they need to sanitize all the workplace. This all this all include the labor expenses. Therefore, I give you another example. At the end of 2021, we were surprised with the new big flood at Selangor. We all know that Selangor is a big economy activities city. Therefore, due to the big floods, a lot of expenses need to be done, such as replace all the facilities and renovation of the building. Another reason of the rising price of good essential is devaluation. It defined as downward adjustment in a country exchange rate resulting in lower value for a country currency, which means the devaluation currency make country export less expensive, encouraging foreign nation to buy more the valued goods. Devaluation also make foreign products for the valuing country more expensive, which encourage citizens of the valuing country to buy domestic product over foreign imports. Therefore, there are the main reason inflation of rising prices could ascension in our country. That's all from me. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mrs. Nerliana, for for the information that you shared to us. So I hope you guys can take notes what that Mrs. Nerliana shared to us. So the factor of this issue was demand pull inflation, cost push inflation, and devaluation. All right. So we move to the next. The next question is for Mrs. Nur Farah Wahida. In your opinion, is that the rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia have affected to the seller? Have you time to answer this question?
Thank you to our moderator. Assalamualaikum and good evening to Madam Norliza and everyone here. Of course, rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia have affected to the seller. The effect have been discussed and felt by many people for the past few years. It is because impact from pandemic, from the problem of flood disasters and rising prices of essential goods. For your information, food supply from outside causes any change in import prices to affect food prices in the country. So, first of all, effect on seller. We as a seller had to raise the price, but we should put the appropriate price to our customer. This is because our customers are accustomed to all prices. We are frustrated with the increased price of vegetables, chickens, pepper, and so on. In addition, vegetable prices increased by 6.9% compared to the last year. Other than that, even when the price goes up, we as a seller don't get any profit because we will lose our customer if the price goes up. Actually, I am so sad because many sellers out there like me only have their income through selling. Like Datuk Mahfuz Omar said, imagine how people or seller out there could raise their own animals if to take the issue if the cost of food is expensive. Next, we as a seller are forced to ration raw goods. The meaning of ration here is a fixed amount of a commodity officially allowed to each person. So, for example, we will selling eggs by mixing grade A and grade C. But you guys don't worry because we will be monitored by enforcer in price, increase activity, and the event of any rationing element. So, this is proven that most affected from agriculture, manufacturing, and more sectors out there. This is so fearful for us to start a new thing because rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia effect on seller. So you guys just think how we want to raise or defend our animals in a house if the cost of food is expensive. Of course, we cannot afford to defend. So, as we know, rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia makes everyone out there miserable. That's all from me. Thank you.
Alright, thank you, Mrs. Farah, because sharing your opinion with us. There is a lot of information that we can get from the explanation of Mrs. Farah just now. So the point that has stated by Mrs. Farah is a seller had to raise the prices, we lost customer also, and forced the ration raw goods. Okay, and with us also we have a student with us, Raudah binti Muhammad Khairi. I'm sure that as student you also will affected with this issue. As a student and represent the others, can you share with us uh, how this uh, how this rising price of essential good in Malaysia have affected you guys and how to handle it as student during this phase? Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you to the moderator. Hello, Assalamualaikum and good evening to Madam Nurhaliza and everyone. Yes, rising prices of essential goods in Malaysia are affected for students. Therefore, the rising prices of goods at present has caused people spending, especially among university students, to increase. So there are several effects of rising prices of essential goods on university students. So firstly, the effect of rising prices of essential goods on students is the rising cost of living. Rising prices for necessities and daily consumption items are very burdensome, and we as students do not have a fixed income and find it difficult to buy necessities at expensive price because we have to spend a lot on rent and food. However, we can only do not spend. However, we can only afford to spend on kitchen item because they are mandatory items to to ensure the well-being of life. This is because we do not have excess money to spend on other items. In addition, the application for zakat money at the university level is also increasing as a result of the National Higher Education Saving Corporation, which is PTPT and money, being sold, being no longer enough to cover expenses. In fact, some of us send some PTPT and money for family expenses, and then thus the rising prices of raw materials and food, including the price of food on campus, also make students uncomfortable sitting. And secondly, another effect of rising prices of essential goods on students is that the students' purchasing power decreases. This is because the rising prices of goods and services have actually affected the purchasing power of consumers when shopping. When the price of essential goods increase, we can only afford to buy goods in moderate quantities, which is not too little or not too much. Therefore, we as students can only afford to get the same quantity of some goods at the same time rate, but different in terms of amount of money that needs to be spent. And this is because we are unable to reduce the number of purchases in the majority as it is an essential basics necessity to ensure the well-being of life. And thirdly, the effect of rising of essential goods on students as is we as students have to find side jobs. It is because there are a handful of students who get money from loan applied by universities and government agencies are not enough to cover the cost of living expenses at university. And other that, for example, student apply for loans from PTPTN and scholarship from government institution. And after that, with having a side job, it can to some extent cover the cost of living expenses as student who needs money for learning and so on. However, doing side jobs while studying, it will cause us to lack time to review lessons and do coursework assigned by university lecturers. So this will affect our level of learning and our exam results as student if this side job is done casually. So that's all from me. Thank you so much.
Alright, thank you for the information that you share with us. Here I have highlighted the effect to students, like rising cost of living, students' purchase power decrease, and affect their studies because they need to do side job for support living expenses and pocket money. But still, you as a student must have to focus on your studies even though you need to work. Okay, we move to our last panel, which is Sir Muhammad Faiz. This is for you. What step can we take to cope with is faced. Welcome to continue the webinar.
Thank you to our moderator. Assalamualaikum and good evening to Madam Noliza and everyone. Malaysia is not only the only country affected by the increase in the price of essential goods, but the whole world is also affected. From the question, what step can we take to cope with this phase? So today I want to share a solution to deal with it. So one of the steps that needs to be taken to address the problem is that every Malaysian needs to practice frugality. We should be more carefully when spending money, especially during unstable economic condition. Thi- This practice can be implemented by reducing food expenditure. We we can cultivate the practice of eating at home because the price of food in restaurant also increase. In this way, we can reduce the demand for certain goods and thus reduce the increase in the price of goods. Furthermore, as a head of the family to my family institution, I usually plan family expense carefully. All expense should be made based on actual needs. This means the good of the will need to be set aside. For example, every family member should postpone the purchase of expensive designer clothes, for furniture, and so on. They should focus on purchasing basic necessities such as rice, sugar, flour, and so on. In addition, all members of society should boycott goods in the market whose price have risen sharply. In this case, the community must be united. For example, people should not buy broiler in markets that have unreasonable price increase. When buyer boycott the purchase of the chicken within a certain period, the price of the chicken will become back to normal again. That's all from me, and I hope it helped a lot of people who struggling to keep survive in inflation that occur in our country. Thank you.
Thank you for the information. Thank you for the information and interesting talk. Here, the point that has been highlighted by Sir Faiz was practice fragility, plan family expenses carefully, and boycotting the price of goods rose sharply. This is some tips that we can use in our daily life to keep our spending under control. Alright. In conclusion, what I can say, we still have to face this phase and go through this till the end, because sometimes we have ups and downs in economic progress. This is not just happened to our country, but it's happened to all over the world. And the government also trying their best to keep price affordable and not oppress us as citizens. We as consumers should always be wise and prudent in spending so that waste does not occur. Okay, now let's we move to the question and answer session. If you have any inquiries, just asking and we will try to answer any question. Okay, here we have 5 questions. Question first, what would be the way to overcome inflation? This question for panel number 1.
Thank you for the questions. When how to prevent the inflation is the government is trying to use wage and price control to fight inflation. Second ways, the government can also pursue a contractionary monetary policy, which reducing the money supply within an economy. Um, Last is price control, which price cap or floors mandated by the government applied to specific goods, which control can be implemented in tandem with price control to suppress wage push inflation. And that's all from me. I hope I answered the question.
All right, thank you, Mrs. Nurliana. Our second question is, you said that when there is no buyer, so the seller cannot make profit. Is there anything that government can do to help the seller?
Yes, the initiative taken by the government is to provide funds as loans in the agro-food sector. It can help farmers in increasing agricultural and further reduce the rate of imports of these goods from foreign countries. That's all from me. I hope I answer the question.
And the third question, since students are badly affected by inflation, what solution can you propose to overcome this issue?
Okay, for my opinions, students need to manage finance more systemically, such as keeping receipts for each purchase and making a special book to determine how much is allocated for each item. That's all from me.
Okay, the next question is, many have said that the university fees has increased to the point that most of the PTPTN will be used to pay the fee alone. Would it be a good idea to advise people who want to enter the university to get information about the university fee before actually applying to study in the university?
Thank you for the question. From my opinion, before apply to study in the university, me will go explore the university fee and uh,
The other panel, have you any suggestions?
for my suggestion, and many students from the B40 family. So from the PTPTN money, uh, they will use also use for their apa, for their spend for eating and so on. So it is a good idea to advise uh, before apply to study in the university. That's all.
Alright, and the last question is, Menteri Besar has made a statement last week where he advised the people to plant their own vegetable and to rear chicken at their own home? Do you think this is a feasible idea? Okay, I try to answer this question. Okay, for me, this is one a good idea, but it's not for the all people because some people who live in apartment flats doesn't fit to this idea. For the people who stay at village may cook, maybe plant vegetable, rare chicken or cow and goat. But for me, it depends on the situation where you live. If you live in town, maybe just a small plant like chilies, maybe you can plant, but others like uh, the big one plant you can't. So if you stay at village, maybe you can plant everything like bananas, uh, bak choy, everything plant you can plant in village. So it's a good idea, but not for all. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, finally we come to the end of the webinar. We would like to say thanks to all the panelists for the information and interactive talk and to the audience for active participation. Hopefully this webinar will be beneficially for everybody. Thank you for your attention and see you when I see you. Assalamualaikum.
Okay, stop the recording, please.